Hey guys, welcome to the last sort of section of the course, and this one is on rendering. And what rendering is kind of like the final output of our model or our animation or whatever we're going to do. So the reason you have to render and is because and why the viewport looks so crappy in comparison is because it takes a long time for the computer to actually calculate all the lighting and stuff. So the viewport's really just a sort of general indication of what things look like, but our computers aren't fast enough to actually render sort of real time. So it uses a viewport render to sort of give you an idea of what things are going to look like. So in this first little bit, we're going to make a camera. You don't have to make a camera to render, but it's always recommended. It's just sort of like a static point we can render from. And you can animate cameras and move them around just like you can in real life. So we're going to put in a camera. We're going to make a little circular turntable for our bear. And we'll put a material on it, and then we will animate the bear spinning on the turntable. And then we're going to render out based on our camera. So, and then bring it into After Effects and export it. So that's basically what this section's all about. So let's get jamming here. First thing I want to do, like I said, we want to create a camera. So I'm going to go create cameras, camera. Yeah, so you can see the camera showed up down here, and I'm going to press W to move. I'm going to hit the camera and press W to move. Now I can move the camera around just like any other object. I'm going to hit undo so it goes back. But what we really want is to see what the camera is viewing. So what you can do, turn your if your tools are on, just turn those off for a sec, and I can hit this guy over here, and that's going to give me two views. What I can do is I can change this panel to go under the panels, camera 1, and I'll sort of divide my screen up here. Now, you're not seeing much here. This is what the camera is looking at, but if you look in the perspective view here, the camera is actually sort of underneath the bear, so it's not really, that's why we're not seeing anything, because it's not looking at anything. So I'm going to move this camera up, and I'm going to make sure I'm in perspective, which I am. And now it's gone black, because the camera is actually inside the bear. So I'm going to move the camera out, way out here, and I'm going to turn my film gate on, which is this one, so I can know what's actually going to render. And I'll make that a little bit bigger. There we go. So that's probably good there. I can rotate the camera as well. Maybe I'll rotate it a little bit down just to get a little different angle. So this is what the camera's looking at, and you'll notice that the bear is not textured in this view like it is over here. But we can hit 6, and there you go. Now it's textured. So they're all dependent on what all these viewports are sort of, you can hit 6 on individual ones. They're not dependent on each other. So it all depends on what viewport you're looking at. Each one has different settings. So you can toggle, hit 5, 6, 5, 6, and it will go back and forth in this view, and it's not going to change anything in that view. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the film gate off there. So now we got our camera set up. So now I don't really want to touch my camera once it's set up. We're not going to actually animate the camera in this scene here, but we're just going to leave it. I can notice this little box that shows up if I click on each view. That means that's telling you which one's going to render. So if I click on this one and I hit render, I'm going to render out a single frame of what the camera is looking at. It's going to take a few seconds because I've got ray tracing on. And it's slowly appearing. So that is a render from the camera. And how you get the render from the camera is that little box. That's how you know which one's going to render. Well, I'll turn that off. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is build a little circular turntable. So I'm going to go create polygon primitives cylinder. And we got a nice little cylinder. So what I'm going to do is use my scale tool. I'm going to scale it way up. I'm going to scale it down, grabbing the top handle, and I'm going to pop it right under his feet. Probably make that a little bit thinner. Something like that. And I want it smooth. It's pretty blocky there. So to smooth it, I can just add, go over to my channel box here. I can add, I don't know, 60. That should be way smoother. And then we want to have a little material on here so we can see reflections and stuff like that, make it look a little bit jazzier. So I'm going to go to my Hypershade, and I'm going to create a new blend because blend has reflections. I'm going to click on the blend here. I'm going to go to my attribute editor, and I'm going to call this turntable material. And I'm going to click on, I'm going to select the actual turntable, and I'm going to right click and hold and go assign material. And now we have a fancy new blend on there. So maybe we'll make it a little bit more reflective. I'm going to turn the reflectivity up, maybe the eccentricity down a little bit. The eccentricity sort of makes it brighter. I don't really want that. Turn the specular roll off up. Let's just take a quick render of that, see what it looks like. Might take a few minutes or a minute or two, so I'm just going to hit pause and I'll come right back when it's. So yeah, now it's done, and you can see there's a little bit of reflection in the turntable, which makes things look a little bit nicer, and some shadows and stuff like that. So you know what, I think that's pretty good. So next we can animate the bear, because we want to see every angle. That's what turntables are all about, is showing off your model in a 360-degree turn. So, and this is a render I did earlier. So this is what we're more or less going to wind up with. So we want a nice seamless loop. Go back to Maya here. So that's kind of what we're after here. So we want sort of a seamless loop animation. So to do that, I'm just going to close that. I'm going to open up my outliner. So what I want to do here, you can see our camera that we made is in the outliner now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select the top one, and I'm going to hold shift, and I'm going to get all of the bear elements all together in one spot, and I'm going to go modify. Hang on, I got to kick my cat out. She's meowing at me here. I'll be right back. Sorry, my cat wanted some love, but I'm in the middle of a video, so. So yeah, I selected all my bear elements. Maybe I'll just freeze the transforms on them. So I'm going to go modify, freeze transforms. I'm going to make sure that the pivot for all these is in the middle. So to double check, maybe I'll just reset them. Nothing probably will happen, but just to make sure that all our pivots are in the middle. So once I've got all these selected, I'm going to hit Control G. Make sure and that'll make a group. Make sure you don't have your lights or your camera or your cylinder in there, because they'll all spin around, and we don't want that. So I'm going to double click on that, rename that bear group, good habit to get into. And I'm going to take my time slider and put it at frame 1 here. And I'm going to go over to my channel box, and I want to rotate Y. So I'm going to click on rotate Y here. Just the actual label of it, not in here. And then I'm going to right click, and I'm going to go, where are you? Key selected right at the top, and then it'll turn red. So some of you may already be familiar with that. And I'm going to go right to 120. And I want a 360 degree spin. So I'm going to type 360, hit enter. and we're going to right click and go key selected, and you'll notice it goes a solid red color. If it's solid red, that means that there is in fact a key on that frame. If I'm not on that frame, then it goes like a lighter shade of red. So let's just preview this. Yeah, it looks pretty good. There's only one problem. I want it to be seamless, and if you notice right in the beginning, if any of you are familiar with easing, Maya automatically puts in an ease in and ease out, and I don't really want that, because then if it's looping, then it's going to slow down and start. Slow down and stop and speed up when it starts, and I don't really want that, because I want this to be able to loop seamlessly. So one thing I want to do is go up to a new panel called Animation Editors. It's called the Graph Editor. So Windows Animation Editors Graph Editor. And I'm going to make sure that I have this bear group selected in my outliner. And this is the actual animation curve, the function curve for this rotate Y. You can see it says rotate Y here. And you can see that there's an ease in and an ease out on this is the frame 120, and this is frame 1 here. And you can see how this curve sort of flattens out in the beginning and the end. I don't want that. I want that to be linear. So what I'm going to do is drag a box around the end frame. I'm just going to click this diagonal line here, and I'll do the same on the front. And now it's a nice straight line. So that means it's a linear curve. So if I hit play now, whoops, the play parameters are based on what viewport you've got selected as well. So now it's seamless. It's not going to ease in and ease out anymore, which is perfect, and it's exactly what I'm after. So that's all good. I can close the graph editor. It's the only thing I need to do in there. So if you want to play around with easing and ease in, ease out, the graph editor is definitely the spot to do that. So next up, I think we're pretty much ready to render here. So what I'll do is I'll make, we're going to go into some render settings right now up here. The little clapper board with the gear on it is where the render settings are, but I think I should probably cut it off here, and I'll make a separate video just for that because we're going to go in there pretty deep. So I'll catch you on the flip.